Welcome to the ConcussED podcast, where we dive into the world of brain health and resilience. I'm Dr. Stephanie Adams, your host to the science, stories, and breakthroughs behind concussions. Whether you're an athlete, a parent, a healthcare professional, or just naturally curious about concussions, you're in the right place. So, let's get started. Today's conversation, I'm joined by the brilliant Laury Milette. Laury is a professional road cyclist from Canada, and she currently is riding for KDM pack cycling team in France. Laury and I connected off the back of a concussion webinar led by the Cyclist Alliance, and it was really humbling to have the opportunity to hear Laury's personal account of concussion, as well as the lessons learned from it. In our conversation, we speak about how the signs and symptoms of concussion don't always come on straight away, the challenges of the mental side of the injury, the importance of education, and getting the right resources and support systems in place, and above all, the critical need for more awareness around the injury. So Laury, thank you so much for joining me today. I was really grateful that you reached out after the Cyclist Alliance webinar to raise awareness about the experience that you've been through, and really grateful that you're willing to share a little bit about that story. Before we speak about concussion, I wondered if we could take things back a little bit more to the beginning, and if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into cycling to begin with.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. If I can help some people by sharing my experience, then I'm happy to maybe do my part. So yeah, I got into cycling. It was a bit random, honestly. Like my parents weren't cycling fans, and obviously it's not really popular in Canada. So yeah, I just went on a bike ride with my sister and my parents, and they thought that we were pretty good just to keep up, and that's how we just then we went into our local club, and yeah, from there I never stopped. So it really grew on me through the 3 years, and yeah, I've just learned to love it more and more, and that's why I kept going.
Amazing. And how amazing that, that is a key focus in your life, that it's a passion that's turned into, part of part of your career as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just I wasn't expecting that, honestly. I was mostly focusing on school. I wanted to be a vet, so yeah, I was working really hard towards that. And then yeah, sport just came into my life. Wasn't really expecting it. Then yeah, I started traveling and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's a bit of a crazy adventure, but I'm really happy that I'm here today.
Amazing. And with cycling generally, what's a misperception do you think that people have about being a pro cyclist?
Well, honestly, I feel like people don't really see it as a real job, especially, I mean, at home. Like, if an athlete say, oh, yeah, I'm a professional hockey player or football player, people just, oh, okay, it's pretty cool. And they understand that it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
But in cycling, it's like kind of hard to grasp, I guess. Like, even in France, where it's a much more popular sport, sometimes I say what I do. Yeah, I'm a pro cyclist. And they're like, okay, so what exactly do you do? It's quite funny, and I get that it's hard to understand when you haven't done it or anything. I think it's just the whole thing in general that people sometimes don't really understand.
Wow. That surprises me in some ways. I can relate in my own tiny way, and the fact that like my sport growing up was horseback riding, and
Yeah.
I competed at a relatively high level, not the level you are at with cycling, but like my friends and peers and folk around me were, oh, it's not a sport. Like it really used to get me frustrated, because it's just these like just yeah those I guess the point is those who haven't walked it and they just aren't in it, their view can be very different on that. Speaking of which, I suppose that transitions into views on concussion. I know that's a very hot topic in sport, and it's something that you've experienced during your cycling career. Can you share a little bit about what happened and how that injury unfolded?
It was my first World Tour stage race in Spain, Vuelta Burgos, and it was on the third stage, the last final 3 kilometers. And there was just a big swerve in the peloton, and I was the first one to go down. I was conscious the whole time. I just remember, yeah, my head hit the ground really hard. We were going really fast because it was sprint finish. And I just remember being dragged on the ground for what seems to be an eternity. It was quite crazy. So I guess with the adrenaline, you don't really think about the injuries. Like you just want to get up. But yeah, so I stayed on ground for quite a while, and I could see my bike on the ground, and all I could think about is, okay, I need to go get it, or it's gonna get lost. So it was really my first thought when the crash happened. And yeah, obviously I didn't finish the race. I just got into the car. There was a quick checkup by the doctor from the race, but there were so many girls that it has to be done quickly because he has to move on to the next person. So yeah, obviously my helmet was completely destroyed, but apart from that, I didn't have any symptoms right away. It was a bit strange. For me, it really took a long time. I think 2 or 3 days before it was clear that I had a concussion. Besides from just one event that happened like on my way back from the race in the VR when we were going back to the hotel. All of a sudden, I really felt like I had to throw up. So I went to grab a bag and then I just started to feel like I was going to pass out. I've never passed out in my entire life before. It was the first time I was experiencing that. So it was super strange for me. It was really a weird experience. And then it got a little bit better when I, yeah, got to the hotel. And so, yeah, and except from that part, like it was a really big thing. Like I was supposed to race in France a couple of days after that. It was one of my main objective, this race in France. So
Yeah.
obviously I really wanted to race. And I think, um, but my team really let me the choice of do you want to race or not? So obviously for me, I wanted to, and I didn't show like clear signs from the beginning. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll give it a try for sure.
Yeah.
So I flew to France. I did the first stage. I really tried to push my way in, and yeah, I just realized that something was definitely wrong, and I couldn't keep going. And it's from this moment that I went home, and then the symptoms really came like later on.
Yeah. So from what you're saying, it um like really didn't come on right away, which it's not uncommon for signs and symptoms to
Mhm.
evolve and be delayed for a couple days. And I think in your case, it's sounding like very much that was the case where things were delayed a little bit with those symptoms. At what point did sort of penny drop for yourself, for those around you, that it was in fact a concussion? What was that moment, do you think?
I would say at least 5 days for me.
Yeah,
And I had a friend who had a concussion before, and she told me that the first symptoms of a concussion usually is denial. And now that I look
interesting.
back, yeah, it's always like that. Like I knew that something wasn't right,
Mhm.
and I still kept riding easy. I could just feel my heartbeat in my head. It was really crazy. And like I was like, okay, like I need to accept the fact that I know I probably have a concussion. So yeah, it took me like, yeah, at least 5 or 6 days to really realize that. And
Yeah,
even then, I didn't really understand the injury. So it's a bit hard to also stop yourself completely from then because you don't really know how to
yeah,
deal with it.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a long process for me.
Yeah, well, first, I'm sorry to hear that. And in my view, and I've seen this over the years, where it's really challenging for the athlete and to see that because we have that view, you want to get back, you really want to get to be performing. And also in the same way, when you have that concussion yourself, you're almost in the worst position to make that decision for you. So we
Mm.
really need that help of those around us and to know what to look for. So it comes down to education and then taking action to help each other. In terms of the support from the team and the coaches and things, in the moment and the days that followed, what was that like? And what, I suppose, on a positive note, what sorts of things started to happen once you knew that there was a concussion?
Well, that's the thing. I think it was a little bit harder for me. Maybe like when I look back, obviously it's easy to say, but if it had been like better taken care of, I think maybe the recovery process would have been faster. But I think even if my team, they really wanted the best for me, obviously, but
Yeah,
I don't think that we had the resources to really understand the injury. And obviously, because you can't see it, people don't really understand. Like they try to, they really want to, but it's still hard. So yeah, like I just had to fill out this one quiz about just the symptoms that I would have, but then nothing would come out of it. I'm just saying, okay, I have these symptoms, and then what do I do? So yeah, and then I was told that, oh, you can keep riding easy, but I could just tell, they don't really want to tell you what to do, but in the end, I know that this is what I needed. Somebody had to tell me, you need to stop. Like, usually this is the protocol. You took at least like 3 weeks off, and then you can start slowly get back into it. But obviously, like, I didn't have any of those tools. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't really have any just resources. So
Yeah.
it took me a long time to actually reach out for help. And it's only when I got home to Canada, because it was in June, and I had my main objective of the year, which was nationals coming up. And I really wanted to get back as quickly
Yeah.
as possible for that, which
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Okay.
This is where I started to see people. So it was only like 2 weeks following the crash. And between that, I was still asked to go to a race for the team just to show up because they needed enough people on the roster to start the race.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the end, I still had to start this race and just like DNF after a couple kilometers. But I was still in the environment of a race. It was still stressful. I still had to ride my bike. Could have crashed. Sometimes stupid crashes happen. And
Yeah.
I know this is when it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like the staff, even if they wanted the best for me, because they can't see, it's not like a broken arm. I wouldn't have raced if I had a broken arm. So why do I have to race with a brain injury?
It's a really good point.
They just didn't really understand. So I just feel like there's some more sensibilization that needs to be done to really understand this kind
Yeah.
of injury.
Yeah, it sounds like a key opportunity for more education across the resources to implement that, doesn't it? It comes back to that resources and what we put focus on is really key. And in terms of looking at the support you ended up getting once you went home across the pond, what sort of things fell into place there? What sorts of things did you start to do with your recovery process, and what did it look like?
Well, at that point, obviously, like I stopped writing completely. And
Hmm.
like the only thing, well, first of all, I went to see a physio who was specialized in like this kind of process. So
Yeah.
we made sure that everything was okay. Just towards maybe it's my neck. If something was wrong with my neck, that could cause the symptoms. We did some tests for my balance, my like reaction test also. So yeah, we just like made sure that everything was okay. And then after that, we decided on a protocol to slowly get back into just doing very easy physical activities. So just like walking at first. So that was the first thing that I did, which was really helpful. And just to train my brain to process sound and images that would just which I found really hard. And then obviously I also saw a couple doctors back home to make sure everything else was okay. And I also had my nutritionist who gave me a few tips. So that was good. Like I was taking just more omega-3 and also creatine because it helps the brain recover. So I had a little bit more support when I truly started the recovery process.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that you did get that.
Yeah.
Pains me to hear that, it wasn't there initially, but the fact that you did get that is reassuring. And also the fact that nutrition was something that came into that. I think we don't talk about that enough, sort of how we fuel the body and how that affects the brain and the injury. Like it's so important. So the fact that that was built into your gradual return to sport
Mhm.
is really important to hear. And I'd be curious to know, as you reflect on that journey, what surprised you the most about having a concussion?
Well, honestly, it's mostly the fact that I thought that I understood what it was, especially coming from North America. Like, I feel like it's a lot more. We talk about it a lot more just because contact sports are well, the main events that we would
Yeah.
watch or talk about. I got it. I didn't even know that it was a concussion. So even if you know about it, it doesn't mean that you actually understand this kind of thing. It's just surprising how much like maybe you think you can understand something, and in the end, yeah, you need to do a little bit more research yourself to truly understand and make sure that you're doing the right things.
Yeah. In terms of understanding it, really, versus the knowing versus understanding and having to live that as well. We talk a lot about the physical side of concussion.
Yeah.
How, if at all, did you find it affected the cognitive or mental side of functioning, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it's the worst part, honestly, because I
Mm.
mean the physical pain or whatever, like it really slows you down. Like this is like you take rest naturally to kind of make it go away. But the emotional part, maybe we don't talk about it a lot, I feel like. And apart from the people or the other athletes that I talked to and who had concussions themselves, who understood that kind of depression that you really get from concussions. Like some people, this part they can't really understand. Like they can see that you're sad, but like it's just like it's just in your brain. You don't even control it. It's just a part that it's really hard to deal with.
Yeah,
And the thing is that, yeah, well, there's one part that just comes from the concussion, but then it was also like all of my goals for the year, my training. There's other emotional aspects of it that just adds on and makes it worse. So yeah, it was really hard. I still went to nationals to see my boyfriend race. It was just so hard to be there and not actually be able to race. Yeah, it was awful. Honestly, this is the worst
yeah.
part. It's really important to actually talk about it to make sure that you're well
Yeah.
supported through that.
I think it's so true. We have to talk about this stuff. And unfortunately, I've heard that a number of times from high performing,
Mhm.
elite athletes like yourself. And I recall a story someone shared, like there's only so many times you can like tell your friend group, you have to go home early from this because the lights are bothering you, or you just get
Mhm.
this wave of things overcoming. And it's I guess like the dark side of concussion that we don't talk about enough. We talk, I think, in society increasingly in a good way. We're more open about mental health generally, but we've not quite made the connection that actually concussion and mental health, like there's a
Mhm.
huge overlap because of the concussion and what unfolds with the injury from all the chemical changes, but equally because the secondary impact of
Mhm.
the reality of being at a sport and that part of the identity. So I mean, just a huge thank you for vocalizing that as well. Like we need to normalize that. I guess if someone else was here with us just now going through that experience with concussion and they're sharing that they're feeling really low, can you think of anything, any tips or advice that you'd give to them in terms of getting through that phase?
I think what really helped me is, yeah, to talk about it, but with people who had concussions before, just
Hmm.
because, yeah, you can just really relate and they tell you, yeah, you're gonna get out of it at some point, and it's just
Yeah,
reassuring. And just to feel understood, I think it's what is helping you the most. Like, just feel like it's gonna end at some point and you're gonna be fine. Um, yeah, I feel it's just really important to talk about it, and it's just more helpful when it's yeah, people just who understand the injury.
totally. It's that community, shared
Yeah.
experience. Although it's not a happy experience to share. It's a shared
Yeah.
experience that
Understood.
you can help one another with. If you don't mind me asking a little bit more about your return to training, like if you think back to you were gradually building yourself up, you started with the walking, you started with reassessing how you're fueling yourself, and you gradually built that up. When it got back to a point where you were sort of, I want to say like almost back to full training, still pre-competition, but full training, how did that experience go? Like, did you find you struggled to pace yourself?
Well, that's why concussion are so hard sometimes. You're sometimes just taking two steps forward and then it's always one step back. So it's not really linear, which makes it really hard to deal with in general. And it's going to be like that for most cases. So you just gotta acknowledge that. And then it makes it easier to understand, okay, maybe I didn't feel good today, but tomorrow can be completely different. And I think that in the end, I got pretty lucky with the way I experienced my concussion. And from the start, I think it would have been as serious if I started to rest like right after, rather than just getting like 2 weeks of keep racing, not resting. So once I really started the protocol, things came back really quickly, which I'm really grateful for because I know it's not the case for everyone and it's different every time. So it still take me like at least 1 month to get back into a decent shape. And I was also lucky to have like I had a goal in the end because there was this race that I was going to do with the national team. The I got lucky that I was healthy enough to do it, obviously. But yeah, I had something to work towards too, and I knew that I wouldn't be top shape, obviously. But I'd say that things went pretty smoothly, so I know that I was lucky for that. But yeah, once you start getting better, usually like things come back pretty quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like once you got that plan in place, you got the team around, like the special, like the team of professionals around you in place and stuff. I think your story speaks to a really key point that what we see with concussion is that sometimes, if we push too soon, too fast, you can make recovery longer. But equally, as sort of the case of what you've described here, is that sometimes if we either don't pick up the concussion right away or we delay it can
Mhm.
sometimes make things a little bit messier at the beginning, can't it? So it is in the end reassuring that you got to that race and you got to go. Be curious to hear, did the concussion impact how you think about different pillars of sort of how you look after yourself, like sleep, nutrition, recovery in general?
For sure. For me, it was good for my sleep. Like I was still able to sleep pretty good.
That's
And
good.
especially in the first weeks, like I just had to sleep all the time, actually. Like
Mhm.
every little task would just take so much energy. I just had to go lay down. So I think you have to be careful with your sleep to make sure you get enough. And yeah, as we talked before, like nutrition obviously is a big part of it. So yeah, yes, it's about recovering, but also just taking care of yourself in a way that makes you feel good.
Yeah, finding those little moments. Generally speaking, like, did you feel supported by those around you in your recovery? I know we talked earlier about how, if you had a broken arm, people can see that, you can see that. It's very different to this invisible injury of concussion.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was pretty good for
Good.
me. Obviously, like it's still hard to understand something that you can see. People were just being really supportive. My boyfriend, my parents, they were all taking care of me and making sure that I wasn't too like overwhelmed with my
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
So we're trying their best, and I think that's the most important.
So that's really good to hear. If we think about concussions generally, how do you think cycling and sport generally can better support athletes with concussions in terms of dealing with it, preventing it, whatever? How can we do better?
Well, I think we just really got to keep working on the prevention and giving more tools to really understand and treating the injury. Yeah, I think it's still a big problem, even though it's getting better. Like, I feel like, especially for the smaller teams, obviously money is a big part of the sport and it's hard to get. So
Mm,
sometimes it's this kind of stuff that they just cut off because they can't afford it. So yeah, when you're in this kind of situation, you just gotta look out for yourself and try
yeah,
to find specialists and get help yourself. But it's not everybody who can afford it, who even do it. So I think we just gotta make it more accessible, hopefully. And the other thing is for me is that yeah, it's the medical staff who usually have to take the decision for you, which I get is really hard because you have to tell someone that, yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't do this race even if you really wanted to. But as an athlete, we're it's really hard to yeah, to take the decision yourself and be wise enough to say no. Most of us won't. So you just
mm,
gotta have a little bit more support around that and have someone who can guide you and take the hard decisions for you sometimes.
yeah, yeah. The majority of athletes will be focused on the performance goal. Like that,
Mhm.
that's the number one, isn't it? For athletes who are going through concussion right now, what recovery strategies or tips would you recommend other than the ones you've already shared?
I think it's just to make a bit your own research and reach out to people who know about it. Because, yeah, for me, I waited too long and I thought I understood the injury, but I didn't. So as soon as you suspected, just go reach out for help and talk to the people around you. A lot of people, like, they have someone in like their like around them who maybe had a concussion, so they can tell you who to go see. It can really, yeah, it can really help. I think it's just to make sure that you have the right tools and support to, yeah, to do the right protocol at the right moment.
That's key. Conscious, one of the things we've not touched on yet is you're very busy outside of your cycling as well. How do you balance being a full-time student with being a cyclist and then also throwing the concussion into that mix?
So on that side, I was actually lucky because I took a year off school
Hmm.
when I last year. I was in university, but the system is a bit different in Quebec.
Hmm.
Yeah, I decided to just fully focus on cycling 1 year, see what happens, and because I really want to go at school, being there, which is impossible in the program that
Yeah.
I want to do. So that's why I had no other choice than getting just a little break,
Yeah.
and then I'll get back to that at some point. So yeah, I was pretty happy in the end that I wasn't at school because that would have just add a lot more stress,
Yeah.
like feeling like I was being late or something, and my studies would
Yeah.
have been really stressful. I feel bad for anyone out there who have to deal with that. I can't even imagine how hard it must be to just have to give up not only your sport that you're doing, but also your studies.
Yeah, I hear this time and time again because once we've established there's a concussion, we can start to get their head around that and what they have to do to once they've got their, the return to play or sport strategy built for them. But then sometimes they'll forget, oh, but I'm also a student or I have a full-time job. And your concussion doesn't take a day off between which hat you're wearing. It's with you on both spaces. So I do hear that people pushing themselves too much within the university or work environment, even though they're holding themselves back on the sport side of things. And we've got to merge that and just think
Mhm.
about that person as a whole, don't we? I think you're right. Like it could be overwhelming for people. I know we've talked a little bit about differences in how concussions are handled in different places through your experience of the care and the support. Are there any other key differences you've noticed in concussion cultures or management between different countries or things that we could learn if we think about like UK and Europe? Are there things we could learn from other areas of the world?
Well, especially coming from Canada, like I just know that it was easier for me to see someone because we have a lot more people who
Mhm.
are really like specialists in that area. So obviously makes it easier to get some help. And also just in terms of the resources that they use or the tools. I know with the physiologist I was working with, we had this app. Usually you would do like a base test before
Yeah.
your season, for example. And then if you have a concussion, you can redo that same test and it can tell you a bit like first of all, it can really tell you if you have clearly a concussion or not, depending on how well you respond to the test. But it also gives you tools to, yeah, just like to make your brain starting to work normally again. And this app was used in a bunch of places all over Canada and the US. And I figured, I was like, well, that's great because then when I get back to Canada to Europe, then maybe I can look for someone who uses the same app. And then I opened it and I could see that there was maybe one place, I think, in the Netherlands, and that was pretty
Really?
much it compared to like basically more than 100 places back home.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, I could feel that it was easier to get support over there because there's a lot more than over here.
Yeah, so real opportunity really to up the resources, to up the
Yeah.
education over here, isn't there? And yeah, you've observed sort of the different systems. So it's not like you were just in one and didn't know what was happening elsewhere. So to see that, I can imagine that could have been quite frustrating actually getting back and learning that. Do you have any final thoughts or advice about concussion that you'd like to share while we're chatting?
My only advice would just be like to reach out to anyone that can potentially help you. You don't have to feel alone through this. Like for me, that's what was really hard at first. When you don't understand what is a concussion, especially with the symptoms that come with this kind of injury, it's kind of crazy. Like I remember one time in the first few days, one of the staff members just dropped my bag after the race in France that I didn't do in the end. And yeah, I started to unpack and then I got my shoes out. And I think I stood there for maybe 1 minute just looking at my shoes and I didn't know what to do with them. I was just so confused. And then after you think about it and you're like, well, something's wrong, but yeah, it's just really hard to really understand how much your brain control everything. And when you're feeling good, you don't really realize that it's processing so much, so much. And when it doesn't go good, then it's just really overwhelming. And you
Yeah.
need to be supported through that to understand it and to make sure that you're not pushing yourself. And it's impossible to do it alone. So it's really just to, yeah, shout, seek
Well
some help.
said. Well said. Yeah. The brain is amazing, isn't it? As you said, when it goes wrong, it can be quite scary, but
Oh, yeah.
it's resilient. And if we get the right tools and support, it can get back to where we want to be. That's a really good point. So where can people find you? What's the best way for folk to follow you, to follow your journey in cycling, and support you?
Mostly through my website. I also have a newsletter that I share a lot on it, actually. And I did share my journey through a concussion also, or just on Instagram. Honestly, I like to share all the details about my life. I just like to include people in my journey. And I know people back from Canada, especially from my community there, they really like to know what I'm doing. So I try to give back to them just by sharing,
It's
yeah, sharing my
lovely.
daily life.
Yeah. I will make sure that we can tag all your posts, your handles and website as well. No, that's brilliant. I had a look at the website and
Yeah,
I loved your approach, loved the photography, loved the different blog pieces. It's great.
thank you.
Encourage people to follow it. I just want to say a huge thank you for coming to chat with me and for sharing your story. I think we both agree how important it is to spread
Mhm.
this awareness. There's a difference, as you so rightly pointed, in knowing about concussion, but understanding it and actually going through that. And it is so important to have people around you and to lean on people and to speak up.
Yeah.
It's just really great to get your story out. And thank you again for coming on to chat with me.
Well, thanks again for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The information provided in today's conversation is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you believe you may be suffering from something similar discussed in today's episode, please contact your healthcare professional.